I'm back with another collaboration with some of my BookTube creator pals who will be linked in the description. This time we are reading award nominees. So I volunteered to take the Edgar Awards, mostly because I wanted to see, in contrast to the project we did earlier this year where I was reading through all the nominees for the Goodreads Choice Award in Mystery Thriller. That is really a contest about popularity of a book, but the Edgar Awards are supposed to be more of a measure of quality of a book. Like, they're actually supposed to be doing some kind of like, this is one of the best quality-wise mystery thrillers of the year. So for that reason, I thought it'd be interesting to see kind of the differences in my experience with the books. I am very much hoping this is going to be a more positive experience, but I do have the 6 nominees right here, of which I have already read 2. So we've got, the 2 I've read are Like a Sister by Kelly Garrett and The Maid by Nita Prose. So these are 2 books that I do not have to read for this video because I've already read them. I gave them both 4 stars, I believe, and we'll talk more about something else having to do with them at the end of this intro. The 4 books that I am going to read for this are Notes on an Execution by Dania Kukafka. We've got The Devil Takes You Home by Gabino Iglesias. We have got Devil House by John Darnielle. And then we have Gangland by Chuck Hogan. So I would say of these 4 books, Notes on an Execution is the only one that had been on my radar to read, though I was a little intrigued with the Gambino Iglesias one. Devil House, not psyched to read because I DNF'd, Wolf in White Van. I did not enjoy that. And then Gangland, it's just not my kind of book. It's sort of like a 70s gritty police crime novel kind of thing. So I don't know. Based on the true story of Tony Arcado, the longest reigning mob capo in history, Gangland is a high-octane drama of integrity, lost honor, and revenge. Gritty and action-packed, it is the ultimate gangster tale. So there you go. I'm not really a gangster book kind of gal, but, you know, it's on the list. And what we're going to do is I'm going to do 2 different rankings through this. I'm going to do a ranking of what I think the best books are, and I'm also going to rank these by which ones I liked, because I'm going to try to have 2 minds. One is like my more objective assessment of, is this a good book? Did it deserve to be one of the nominees, like one of the best mystery thriller suspense books of the eligible year? You know, like, was it worthy of being nominated from a quality perspective versus my own personal taste, which might be that I don't happen to like something that is higher quality. So for right now, going into this, I would say I would put The Maid at the top in terms of my enjoyment and Like a Sister at the top in terms of quality. Though, like I said, I actually did enjoy both of these. So pleased to see them both on the list. And if I'm going to predict that I both like and find Notes on an Execution to be the best. Like, I think I'm going to enjoy this the most, and I think it's going to be the best quality. That's my prediction going into this. But we'll see how I do with these 4 books that I might have picked up Notes on an Execution, but the others I don't think I would have picked up without this. So let's see how this goes. Can't be any worse than my agony reading all of those aggressively mediocre Stephen Kings earlier this year. So it's got to be all uphill from here. Guys. Okay. So I decided that we were going to start this off with the book I had the most trepidation for so that I did not build up the dread. You know, I decided to go for it. Start off with Devil House by John Darnielle. You know, it went how I thought it might, which is that part the first, if you're gonna call this a genre book, I would probably say that this is horror rather than mystery, thriller, suspense. Maybe I need to, okay, you know, now that I'm thinking about this, let's double check and see if horror is eligible for an Edgar. Edgar Awards. Okay, it's the mystery, okay, The Edgars are hosted by the Mystery Writers of America. Okay, it's right there in the title, mystery. At least according to Wikipedia. Edgar Allan Poe Awards, popularly called the Edgars, are presented every year by the Mystery Writers of America, based in New York City. Named after American writer Edgar Allan Poe, a pioneer in the genre, the awards honor the best in mystery, fiction, nonfiction, television, film, and theater. Okay? Guys, I just don't see what world this is any kind of a mystery. I don't think it is. I do not think that this is a mystery. So, like, I'm kind of annoyed and perturbed just, like, off the bat. Second, this has literary aspirations. John Darnielle is a songwriter, so there is a certain kind of, like, lyricism to his prose, and it's very style forward. This is a vibe book, okay? So, like, if you like the vibe, if you're into the vibe, this might work better for you. But I'm not into this vibe. This vibe feels to me very much like slam poetry at the college coffee shop vibe. That's how I felt about Wolf in White Van too, which is why I DNF'd that one. And it starts off a little more suspenseful. There's sort of like a haunted house element, but not really. And it starts more suspenseful, and then it just like goes kind of to hell in a handbasket. I didn't like the way it all came back together at the end. There's like this whole section where it becomes like a medieval poetry night thing because there's like this family lore that what's-his-face, Gage, is descended from a line of kings. I don't know. I think I just am like not into this vibe. And so I found the whole thing kind of just pretentious and annoying. Now, when you get into trying to, okay, so I would give this, I'm actually being very generous because I'm tempted to give this 1 or 1.5, but I am going to give this 2 stars because there were moments that I enjoyed. Like, I didn't have a horrible time. I wasn't like hating my life reading this, okay? But I am annoyed that it's one of the nominees because it is not a mystery in my opinion. It's a lot about true crime. Also, can I just say, I am begging more lit fic writers to stop trying to write with profundity about true crime. I think that there's a certain amount of like sneering and sort of like, I think that it's sort of like the intelligentsia having a lot of judgment about sort of the carnal crassness of enjoyment of true crime. Do not mishear me. I think that there are some legitimate and interesting critiques to be made about true crime, but I think it should come from inside the house, because when this kind of writer, or like the Rebecca Makkai book, I just think that they fundamentally don't have enough engagement with what people like about true crime. I don't know. I just find that it's not insightful. It's not interesting critique. Like, for instance, I found that Holly Jackson, Good Girl's Guide to Murder, I actually think thematically that is really actually interrogating a lot of the ethics of true crime in a way that I think is much more like interesting and engaging with it as a genre than anything I've read from like think pieces in Sunday magazines kind of thing, or this kind of fictional thematic takedown. Okay, so anyway, side note, I don't even think it's a good thematic take on true crime and like the ethics of it and like why we're so obsessed with true crime as a culture, or as like humans. People have always been interested in crimes. Hello, they used to be public executions. Yeah, so I think there were moments of this that I thought were nice. Like I didn't hate my life. I'm very annoyed that this is one of the nominees. And so it's definitely the bottom of my enjoyment ranking. And I'm trying to have some level of objectivity about if I think that this is a good book. And I think because I don't think it's a mystery, I don't think I can objectively say that this is a well done version of what it is being put forward as. Because like to me, one of the primary things a mystery, even if it's a literary mystery, one of the main things it needs to do is entertain me. I'm trying to think, like In the Woods by Tana French, that's like a go-to literary mystery recommendation. Very entertaining. Attica Locke is very entertaining. Let's see here. Like a Donna Tartt Secret History is a kind of mystery, suspensey thriller thing that's more literary, that is still entertaining. The Eighth Detective, I really enjoyed that collection a few years ago. Like, you can have literary mystery that is still very entertaining, which is part of what I think the genre, that's a part of it being a piece of genre fiction to me, is that it has an entertainment factor, even as it may have more to say, it may be more literary, it may be going for a more artistic tone or quality. The two things can coexist, and this is not entertaining and it is not a mystery, and therefore I think that in terms of its quality, it's kind of a failure. It's making me feel like I should give it 1.5. We'll see where I land. I'm very annoyed right now, so that might be coloring my thoughts. So you'll know, I'll put it up here where I land. But I'm glad I read this first, because now we can move on to the 3 books, all 3 of which I think I have a good shot of at least appreciating, even if it doesn't end up being like my favorite. I believe that I have a chance of appreciating and being entertained by all 3 of the remaining books. So, with that, bye-bye. Let's move on. Edgar Awards making me read half-ass literary horror. Okay, I am very happy to report that I very much enjoyed Gangland, which kind of surprised me because it's definitely not my kind of book at all, but I think is a really good version of what it is. I think it's giving very Godfather. Like, it feels like The Godfather for the new generation. I don't know. Like, there's an element in this that I don't think they tell you about on the back. Yeah, I don't think that they allude to it. Nicky has a secret that has made his life unbearable and put him in the pocket of the FBI. Okay, so that secret, I think, is sort of like what makes this feel a little bit more modern, or feel like not something that you would have gotten in the 70s, but this reads very much like, what is his name? Mario whatever, who wrote The Godfather. We've got Nicky, who's our main character, and he is in the pocket of this mob boss, this like notorious mob boss of Chicago who's been running the city for a very long time. He's older, but he's still very powerful, and Nicky has been forced basically to kind of turn coat on him because the FBI knows this secret and they're basically blackmailing him. He runs like this bowling alley. I think they call him Nicky Pence, if I'm remembering rightly. So yeah, so it's about him caught between these two forces. The mob boss is a very interesting character who has a big presence in the book. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought that this was really well done. I do think that there were moments where I felt like it was a little cliche. It was definitely a lot of things I felt like I've seen before in some kind of mob fiction. And I am not a big consumer of mob fiction. So if I'm thinking that it feels familiar and a little cliche, that I don't know that I think there were moments of this not being super innovative. But I do think that there were elements that felt fresh. I actually quite like the writing. It's very kind of like short, bare prose, like no nonsense. But I felt like it was a really well done version of that. So yeah, I think that this is well written, and I think I was surprised at how much I was entertained by it, even though it is not my kind of thing normally. It's sort of like it felt like a palate cleanser. Like, it's not something I'd want to read all the time, but I enjoyed what I did read of it. So yeah, I felt like this was a big win. I would say that I did not like this as much as The Maid or Like a Sister, but I do think in terms of its quality, it's probably a better book than at least The Maid. So yeah, I was pretty pleased with this one. Proof that I can like books that are not my thing. I just don't like Devil House because it's not a mystery. This was clearly a suspense kind of situation. So I understand why this is in the mix. Okay, got 2 more books to read. Okay, well, we've now got 2 books that I do not think belong in these nominees, because I think that this is a horror novel, and I mean, there's elements of this that I understand how it could fall into like a thriller suspense kind of category, but I think given especially how violent this gets and some other elements that I don't want to name because of spoilers, I just think that this is a horror novel. So like, why is this in the nominees? Unless I'm just totally wrong on the criteria, which I did look up and it said mystery. So I don't know. So The Devil Takes You Home, I really like thematically. So it opens with our main character losing his child to cancer. So trigger warning there if that is something you do not want to read about. And from all of the medical debt, he essentially ends up becoming a hitman. He and his wife break up. Like he's in a real bad place. And then things kind of progress from there as there's like this opportunity that arises, and yeah, anyway. So it kind of, like I said, I could see a world, I like the premise itself has some possibilities for a more suspensey, version of a mystery thriller suspense. Kind of like Gangland, actually, which I kind of want to me, The Devil Takes You Home is between Gangland and Devil House. And I just think that Gangland is definitely the superior book of this kind in terms of like executing on a kind of seedy underworld premise or setting, but keeping it still in the suspense realm. The other thing is I did not like the writing in this. Okay. I'm literally just going to read you the first couple of sentences to give you a flavor. So this is not literally the first, we're on chapter 1. Okay. Leukemia, that's what the doctor said. She was young, white, pretty. Her dark brown hair hung like a curtain over her left eye. She talked to us softly, using the tone most people use to explain things to a child, especially when they think the kid is an idiot. Her mouth opened just enough to let the words flow out. It just like, that kind of simple staccato-ness, to me, this version of it just didn't work for me in my ear, as compared to Gangland, which also has a very simple style, but I felt like it flowed better. So the first few lines of this are, "Cops details watching the house, I should have warned you," Sam Giancana said. Balding, paper-skinned, and sickly, the 67-year-old former boss of the Chicago outfit picked his way down the basement stairs ahead of Nikki. "No shit, Nikki, I didn't see it." So it's not like this is a flowery style. It's still pretty simple, but it doesn't have the same sort of for me, pretentious quality to the declarativeness. I don't know. This just didn't work for me style-wise. So I really liked what it was saying, but I did not enjoy how it said it, is kind of the bottom line here. So I'm going to give this 3 stars because I'm going to choose to think of it as literary horror, and in that respect, I can give this 3 stars. Note that the Devil House, even when I thought of it as literary horror, I struggled to even give it 2 stars. So yeah, this is not a fave. I don't think it really belonged in this list, but it wasn't horrible. I would say it is below, it definitely falls low to me on both enjoyment and quality relative to this list. But if I were putting this quality-wise up against 100 books, it probably would come out more like the middle of the pack. So yeah, sadly, not one I loved. Hello. Oh, okay. Learning how to film with this new bookshelf in this spot. I'm done, guys. I finished notes on an execution this evening. It was so good. I really enjoyed this book, and I think I may have gotten to it eventually, but this definitely was the push to get to it. So for that, I'm very thankful. I'm between a 4 and a 4.5. I think I'm a 4 because there were some lags in this, and if I'm being honest, I do wish it was a little bit more mysterious. But basically, this is what I would describe as literary crime fiction. Mystery might be a little generous, but it is very much centered on the bringing to justice of this serial killer named Ansel. And it's really an interrogation of, at least here in America, our relation to death penalty, to violence, towards women, towards the callousness of America to violence in some ways, and just the way that women are always the one who get lost. Now, I will say, I think that there are probably some valid readings of this that could say that by centering Ansel so much, it downplays the women. But for me, and this is probably my bias showing here, because I'm against the death penalty, essentially because for me, violence begets violence. And like, America has such a violent culture and society, and to me it's just sort of like the culmination of the violence that we have just accepted as normal. So for me, that was kind of what the message was this ultimate act of violence that's going to be enacted on Ansel, and how it's sort of just like the ending of that process. So for me, the violence on page we saw towards women and kind of the centering of his story was in support of those themes, but I could see a reading or it striking someone as being too much, making him sympathetic, but I don't think it's really about that. I think it's about like our common humanity. And anyway, so I thought that this was a really beautifully written book, very thought-provoking, much more interesting in terms of its thematic content, interrogating sort of like some of the cultural elements around crime fiction. So for that reason, quality-wise, I would say this is the best book I have read of these 6. It's not my favorite entertainment-wise, but I would probably put it right behind The Maid. It and Like a Sister are probably about the same to me in terms of just like my enjoyment and edification from the reading process. So yeah, I'd say it's like number 2 or 3. I'll decide where I let it shake out. But yeah, I'm gonna put this at a 4. There is an actual investigation that happens in this. So even though it is literary, I do accept that it could be on this list. But I think in our wrap up, once I've dried my hair, we'll get back together and we'll talk about like my overall thoughts about the Edgars from this reading experience, and then also in comparison with Goodreads, and maybe like the state of the awarding process for crime fiction writ large, because I have some thoughts coming out of these 2 reading experiments. Okay guys, wrapping up this lovely little vlogaroo. I'm still getting ready for the day, but I'll go ahead and check in. So, in terms of quality for the Edgars, I would say of these 6, I think 4 make sense and 2 do not. The 2 that I'm putting at the bottom, Devil House, I don't get at all. The Devil Takes You Home, I just think is horror, and it probably is a pretty good quality horror, but is crime fiction, which is I think where I'm kind of landing as my descriptor for what I think they're trying to measure. I just don't think that's the emphasis of that story. So I would say The Maid, Gangland, Like a Sister, and Notes on an Execution all make sense to me quality-wise and what they're trying to do for this particular award. I would say I think Notes on an Execution is probably quality-wise the best of these that I read. And I would also say it's probably the best quality-wise across this and the Goodreads nominees for the same time period. Enjoyment-wise, it's hard to say. I mean, Notes on an Execution and The Maid are both up there, but like, this is more edification enjoyment, and this is more popcorn entertainment enjoyment. Which of these did I enjoy more? You know, I'm gonna tell you. And I need to preface this by saying both of these I ended up giving a 4 to. I was between a 4 and a 4.5. And I just think, if I'm really being honest, I'm more impressed that this made me enjoy a cozy than I am that this was literary crime fiction. So I think I'm gonna give it to The Maid, which feels weird to say, because The Maid is really fun. I like The Maid, but it's not like it's not as if The Maid is one of my all-time favorite mysteries. But when it came to the things that apparently were being awarded in 2022, I think it's the one I just like the best. So enjoyment-wise, I would still have the 2 I mentioned earlier at the bottom. Gangland and Like a Sister, I probably enjoyed about the same, but Like a Sister, I think, was just more my kind of book. And these were, again, pretty similar, but I'll give it to The Maid. So What did I take away from this? I think what I take away is that I really wish, because the Edgars are specifically the award of the Mystery Writers of America, if there's any organization that's going to platform and promote mystery rather than a thriller, suspense, or something that is crime fiction adjacent, surely it should be the Edgars, right? Like, you guys are the ones who should be putting forward mystery. Like, I guess do I think that this is a better list than the Goodreads Awards? Unquestionably. Like, quality-wise, for sure. My enjoyment-wise, overall, I completely prefer the Edgars list. I think what I enjoy about it is that even the ones I didn't end up liking at least are distinctive. They have a real flavor to them. They are trying to say something. They're going for it. Even if I didn't end up enjoying it, I appreciate that it is a perspective and it's not bland. The Goodreads list, which I should put... I'll try to come up with a graphic here while I'm talking so that you know which books I'm talking about. My good problems with the Goodreads list is that it's the least common denominator. And granted, I'm reading nominees for Edgar's versus I was reading the winners for the Goodreads, so maybe I would feel differently if I looked at the breadth of the nominees for 2022. But I think even if I did that, and I guess maybe that's what I'll do here. Yeah, I mean, looking at the Goodreads nominees for 2022, I do think that there are a few more ones that I would be excited about and stand behind as being distinctive. Wrong Place, Wrong Time definitely comes to mind there. But for the most part, again, I think that what the Goodreads Awards tend to favor is kind of just something that's the most broadly appealing because it's really a popularity contest. So the winners in particular ended up often being super bland, in my opinion, not memorable, not interesting. So I feel like at least I can give that to the Edgars, is that they are, I think the list as a whole, if I were going to tell you which of them is truly representing excellence in some way, I do think, I get where the Edgar nominees are coming from. I really do. But I think my takeaway from this is that I would love to see the Edgars embracing quality mystery. And I guess that's the other thing. I think Goodreads is so skewed towards thriller and domestic suspense. I would really love to see the Edgars actually championing mysteries and not just literary crime fiction. There are good quality mysteries out there, like Attica Locke. I mean, they are there. So I wish that the list of books I just read had more, really, in terms of truly a mystery. It's The Maid. And then I would say Like a Sister is more on the mystery end of a thriller. I would probably call it a suspense, mystery, thriller, mystery, suspense, something like that. But of these 4 books, really, I would say only 2 of them are meaningfully mysterious. And I just think that is a real shame, considering that they have carte blanche to go there. Yeah, I don't know. I think in general, my takeaway is right now, there are not, maybe part of this, okay, to be fair to the Edgars, part of this is I just don't know that we're in a moment where the publishers are publishing a lot of true mysteries and really giving them a push. They always have to have something with it. I mean, The Maid, I think, has sort of the voiciness that makes it distinctive. I would say Wrong Place, Wrong Time is meaningfully a mystery, and its sort of hook is the speculative element that it includes. So I don't know. I wish that just mysteries themselves were more popular. Maybe that's the bottom line. Or at least that they were getting kind of the prestige releases. Because people love mysteries. Why do you think Agatha Christie is still so popular? Why do you think half of scripted dramas are some kind of crime fiction? People like these kinds of stories, and wish that they were getting more of a push. So anyway, all that to say, if I were going to recommend to you which of these groups of books to read, I would certainly recommend reading the Edgars over the Goodreads. And in both groupings, somehow The Maid has really just come out swinging because it really is a mystery. I think that that's a lot of what it has going for it in my books. And it's, you know, it's distinctive. And I should mention, I know some people have, some people like the rep for autism in this and some people don't. So it's divisive that way. So know that about it. But, yeah, anyway, I'm not obsessed with The Maid, but it just keeps rising to the top somehow. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please, please, please make sure to go watch all of my co-hosts' videos. I will have that linked in the description box, so please go check that out. I need to put some sunscreen on. I need to take my little pimple patches off and get my day going, but I have enjoyed this project, and I'll be back to read the Goodreads nominees at the end of the year, so say a little prayer for me, okay? Let me know what you thought about any of the books that I mentioned today. Let me know what your thoughts are for the Edgar nominees and it as an entity. And yeah, I think that will do it for me. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below. Marple says hello. Now is her times where she gets pets. And yeah, I will talk to you guys soon. Bye!